The night had fallen over the small town like a thick blanket of shadows, and the soft glow of streetlights flickered against the windows of the convenience store that stood on the edge of the highway. Inside, a young cashier named Emily Carter fought back exhaustion while stacking the last few items on the shelves. Her long shift was nearly over. She kept glancing at the clock on the wall, desperate for the moment she could breathe freely again and go home to her little brother, who waited for her every night with the same hopeful eyes. But fate had a different plan for her on this particular night, one that would test her strength, her fears, and the hidden kindness still quietly alive in strangers. Sparkles, if you believe in kindness, courage, and second chances, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. It truly supports this channel and helps spread stories that inspire hearts around the world. Sparkles. Emily had begun her shift 12 hours earlier. The store was understaffed, and she desperately needed the overtime pay to cover her brother's upcoming medical checkups. Their mother had passed away 2 years ago, and since then, Emily had stepped into every role life demanded of her: provider, guardian, protector, despite being only 23. She hid her stress behind tired smiles, the kind that convince customers that everything is just fine. But deep down, she carried battles no one could see. It was 5 minutes past closing when the bell above the door chimed, even though she had already locked the entrance. Her heart skipped a nervous beat as 4 men, loud, drunk, and wearing rowdy expressions, pushed their way inside after waiting for a customer to leave. Their eyes scanned the aisles like predators circling prey. Emily's pulse quickened. She told them gently that the store was closed and they needed to leave. They laughed instead. One stepped closer, invading her space with the cruel confidence of someone who believes the world owes him whatever he wants. Emily's fear intensified as another man grabbed a snack off the shelf and mockingly asked what she planned to do about it. Her hands trembled as she stood behind the counter, praying silently for them to go. But these men weren't finished, not yet. They grabbed a bottle of beer, popped the cap off right there, daring her with their eyes to stop them. She tried one more time, voice cracking, insisting they leave. That was when one of them reached forward and tugged roughly at her uniform collar, laughing at her panic and tears that threatened to spill. Emily felt frozen, fragile, and utterly alone. The rest joined in, making cruel remarks, treating her fear like a joke made for their entertainment. What the thugs didn't know, what they could not see, was that they were not alone in the store. Toward the back aisles, behind stacked cans and rows of cereal boxes, 3 bikers had been browsing quietly. They belonged to a well-known motorcycle club in the area, men with intimidating looks and rough voices, but hearts tempered by loyalty and a strict moral code. They, too, had seen life's darkest corners. They knew fear. They knew suffering. And they had built their brotherhood on a vow to never allow cruelty to go unchecked. The largest of them, Tank, noticed the shift in Emily's body language long before the thugs escalated. He saw the panic rising in her eyes like a drowning signal. He watched the way her voice faltered, how her hands shook when she rang up the last customer. And when those men barged in after hours, he exchanged a silent nod with the others. Something was about to go very wrong. As the thugs began touching her and pulling her uniform, Emily felt tears burning down her cheeks. She wanted to scream, but fear choked her voice. Every second felt like suffocating in terror. She struggled to push their hands away, but they only laughed louder, their joy born from the suffering they caused. Just when she thought she would break completely, a deep voice rolled through the aisle like thunder, and heavy footsteps echoed on the polished floor. The bikers stepped into view. Their presence alone shifted the air inside the store. Tank walked in front, jaw clenched, eyes cold with a fury that promised justice. Behind him were Reaper and Ghost, both equally fierce, moving with calm but unstoppable purpose. The laughter of the thugs died instantly. Suddenly, their fun no longer seemed fun. The biker leader crossed his arms over his broad chest, glaring with a silent warning that was louder than any shouted threat. Emily stepped back, breath shaky, as relief and fear collided inside her. The thugs tried to act unfazed at first, putting on a show of bravado. But the bikers were unmoved. Their protective instincts ignited, not out of heroism for attention, but from a deep place of principle. Tank told the thugs to leave. His voice was low, controlled, but dripping with a promise of consequences if they didn't. One of the men laughed nervously, claiming it was just a joke. Another stepped forward, puffing his chest to challenge the bikers. But it was already too late for intimidation. Before they even realized it, Reaper pinned one man against the candy shelf while Ghost seized the wrist of the one who touched Emily, twisting his arm until his knees bent in pain. The store that had moments earlier felt like a prison transformed into a battleground where justice finally stood on Emily's side. The thugs, now terrified, tried to escape, scrambling toward the exit. The bikers forced them out, ensuring they would think twice before harassing anyone ever again. The sound of their hurried footsteps disappeared into the night, leaving behind a silence so still it almost felt unreal. Emily stood trembling, shock still wrapping tightly around her chest. Tank approached her slowly, his rough appearance softened by genuine concern. He gently asked if she was all right, and for the first time that night, Emily felt safe enough to breathe again. She tried to hide her tears, embarrassed for having broken down in front of strangers. But he reassured her with quiet strength, telling her that no one deserved to be treated that way and she had done nothing wrong. She nearly collapsed from the weight of everything that had just happened. Tank caught her before she fell, helping her sit on a nearby chair. Reaper brought her a bottle of water while Ghost locked the door and made sure nobody lingered outside. Emily wiped her tears, feeling overwhelmed not just by fear but by gratitude. In a world that had so often felt like it worked against her, tonight, unexpectedly, someone had taken her side. Once she steadied her breathing, she thanked them. Her voice was still weak, but sincere. Tank took note of her bruised collar, his eyes darkening with a dangerous promise should those men ever return. He asked if she needed someone called. Emily shook her head, explaining that she just needed to finish her last closing task and get home to her brother. The bikers shared glances, none of them comfortable with the idea of leaving her alone after what had almost happened. So they stayed. They helped her straighten the store, pick up the items knocked down, and restore a sense of order. They didn't hover or crowd her, they simply ensured she wouldn't have to face any lingering fear by herself. When everything was done, they walked her out to her car, making sure she was safely inside before they left. Tank reminded her she wasn't alone, not anymore. Their club often passed by the store, and from now on, they would keep an eye out. Emily drove home with shaky hands but a lighter heart. Her brother was waiting at the window, waving with excitement. She hugged him tight, feeling grateful she could still come home to him safe and alive. The next day, Emily's manager reviewed the security footage and reported the incident to the authorities. But what truly made her feel stronger was when the bikers showed up earlier that evening, coming in not as intimidating strangers but as protectors and friends. Tank handed Emily a small charm with their club emblem, a symbol of safety, telling her that if she ever felt threatened again, she only needed to call. For someone who had carried the world alone for too long, that gesture meant everything. As days turned into weeks, Emily found her confidence growing. Her fear didn't disappear instantly, but each time those bikers dropped by, sometimes to grab a drink, sometimes only to check in, her smile grew just a little bit more genuine. Customers noticed, complimenting her new spark of courage. Even her brother sensed the change, hugging her proudly every night she returned home safely. The thugs never came back. Goodness had stepped in when evil thought it owned the night. Emily often thought about how easily things could have gone differently. She realized heroes don't always wear capes, sometimes they wear leather vests and ride roaring motorcycles. They may look rough on the outside, but inside are hearts filled with justice, shaped by pain and life lessons that turn them into guardians of the vulnerable. If this story touched your heart even a little, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps bring more real and inspiring stories like this to life. Red Heart Sparkles. Speech Balloon Special Request. Comment below, do you believe that kindness still exists in strangers?